So this is going to be a quick verb review of all the items that we have gone over in Latin 2 during this week of September 14th and 16th. But I just wanted to make a video which is a quick review in case you have any questions about how verbs exist and what they look like and how they're translated. Remember that I have in my hand two color markers. There are 6 total tenses in Latin. 3 tenses do I write in green, and I'll write them over here at this time. They include the present tense, they include the imperfect tense, and they include the future tense. Now the reason why I write them in green, and I don't know if you can make it out, but on this study guide that I have made the present stems of all of these examples of verbs in the various different conjugations green. And that is because these 3 tenses, all of them use a present stem, and like leaves on a tree, they're going to indicate action that is incomplete or not completed. But to, I suppose, go back to an even more basic tenet, all verbs belong to categories that are called conjugations. First conjugation, second conjugation, third IO, and then fourth conjugation. And these 4 conjugations then are going to dictate specifically the way in which the verb is formed. Of the principal parts, and that's also what you need to know about verbs, is that every verb has 4 principal parts. Most of them do. And these are the essential, most basic forms from which you can create any verbal expression in Latin. They are the fundamental forms, and we call them the principal parts. All principal parts are not created equal. The second principal part is the infinitive. The infinitive gives the conjugation and the present stem. So, those 3 tenses, indicating action not completed, and also are the tenses that will use that present stem. So let's talk about and deal with them first. So here, I set out for you how you will form all of them. And so for the present tense, you're going to take the present stem, add the present vowel, and then your present endings. Now your present endings are seen over here. The active endings, which means that the subject commits the action, MST, must tis nt, and the passive, meaning that the subject is acted upon, RS tuer, moor, mini, intuer. And so, if you are to become confused with a present tense verb, if you are forming it, you will probably mess up with the vowel. Because the vowel is different, that being the thing that goes between the stem and the ending, the vowel will be different dependent upon which conjugation the verb belongs to. And that is then why it is so critical that you memorize the present vowel of first conjugation is a long A, second conjugation is a long E, third conjugation, it will be a short I, third IO, it will be a short I, and the fourth conjugation, it will be a long I. Now you will note that there are some letters that are in parentheses. That is because some endings like T, NT, M, R, intuer, they cause a vowel which precedes the ending to appear short. It eats the macron. Then there is the situation by which, whenever you have an I come into contact with the ending NT, it results in that the INT int becomes a UNT unt. And you have also other instances of what happens when you have a vowel plus a particular ending combination, that the vowel sometimes is going to be changed. For example, long E's plus M or R is going to result that long E appearing as though it's an A, and a short I that you would find obviously in the third and third IO plus a ris will appear as though it is turned into a short E, RIS. So the present tense, you take the present stem, present vowel, and then the present ending, and that creates a present tense verb. Imperfect tense is going to be also with the present stem that you get from that second principal part. You will also have those same present endings that you see here, but instead, its middle is not just a vowel, but it is a vowel plus a BA. And please note that sometimes the vowel A and A is similar, E and E is similar, but note that it is not always going to be the same. Third conjugation, the vowel in front of the BA is a long E instead of the present vowel, which was an I. And so, easily is the imperfect tense recognized because you do see that ba or BA that is there. Now, what some people do is that they will combine the ba plus those endings that you see there, and they will create imperfect endings. But let's be clear, imperfect endings do not exist. Instead, it is really just the ba plus what are known as the present endings. Finally, you have the future tense, in which you will take the present stem, again, in green, second principal part, audire, A-U-D, and you will again have your present endings, but in the present tense, there are actually two options. In the first and second conjugation, what you will find is a BI with a vowel preceding it and a BI with a vowel preceding it. And just like we combine the BA plus our endings to make imperfect endings, you can do the same by combining the BI plus your present endings to make future endings. And we'll look at those in just a moment. Alternatively, for the third IO and fourth, its symbol that lets you know that it is in the future tense is the letter E. You can see it here. The letter E, the letter E, and the letter E. Now for the third IO and fourth, there is an I that precedes the letter E. And that is why I often say, if I see I long E, future it will be. So it's not really a problem recognizing the future because you'll see a BI in the first and second. It's not a problem in the third IO and fourth because if I see I long E. But particularly, if a verb appears with a long E, it does not guarantee that it will be future because you can also see a long E as the vowel for a present verb. And I'll give you an example, 4 of them. If I were to have the words mitemus and videmus and eubemus and agemus, all of them look in the exact same structure. That is, they all have a present stem and a present ending. 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 And all of them, of course, have the letter E. But the way that we will translate these verbs entirely depends upon what conjugation each of them are. And how do you know what conjugation of the verb is? You look at the second principal part. And what you were looking for is, you were looking to see if it is an are for first, if it is an ere for second, if it is an ere, short ere for third, ere, short ere for third IO, and ire. Now you will only find an E as the vowel for second or third conjugation verbs. And that is why, when you see a stem, a long E, and an ending, you must ask the question. And the question is this verb that features the E a second conjugation, or is this verb that features the E a third conjugation verb? Because if the answer is that it is a second conjugation, then your verb expression is indicating action in the present. And if your verb is a third conjugation verb that features a long E, you are going to have a future action on your hand. So for each one of these, I'm going to write down for you the second principal part. So for mitemus, it would be, I suppose I'll do it over here, mino, minere. For videmus, it is video, videre. For eubemus, it is eubeo, eubere. And for ago, it is ago, agere. And of course, these mean to send, to see, to order, and to drive. So now with this information, we can correctly translate each of these. Mitamus, a long E. I see that it is a third conjugation. This is a future action. We, in the future, will send. Videmus, long E. I see that this is a second conjugation verb, which tells me that the action of seeing is right now. Right now, we see, we do see, we are seeing. Eubamus, long E. I see that it is a second conjugation verb. So therefore, right now, in the present tense, we order, we are ordering, we do order. And then finally, agemus. I see that it is third conjugation with a short ERE, and thus we will drive at some point in the future. Now, let me scroll down a slight bit. And so that is incredibly important. Once again, that if you see an A, and there's not like a BA or a BI, you're talking about present tense. If you see a short I or a long I, and there's not a BA or BI, you're talking about present tense. If you see a BA, it's guaranteed imperfect tense. If you see a BI, it's guaranteed future tense. If you see I long E, future it will be. But these two that I am circling, whenever you're dealing with a long E, you do not know. Now, as I said before, you can combine your BA of the imperfect, your BI of the future, or your long E of the future, and create imperfect endings, or, in the cases of both of those, future endings, by combining them here. But remember, they do not exist as a future ending or an imperfect ending. But here, as you can see, with your super air quotes, your imperfect endings. Bombas bat, bamas batas bant, bar baras batur, bamor bamani bantur. Then with the BI, bo bis bit, bimis bitis bunt, it would be originally this B-I-O, but remember that O's are a strong vowel, and it eats the I, and then it ends with bo. Same thing happened here. Here, remember, that's a BI, but I plus ris turns it to an E. And that's why it is bor, beris, bitor, bimor, bimini, and of course bunt for the active and buntor for the passive. Because the Romans usually do not make them say int. The Romans will make them say unt. And then over here in the same way, remember that the future could be expressed by a long E, and thus you have these future endings. Ames a descent, ar eris ator, amor emini entor. And again, the equation was long E plus M equals AM. Long E plus R equals AR, and that's why those two appear like they do. Now, how do I express these verbs when I recognize them as being either present, imperfect, or future? Well, here are, of course, the expressions that you can see. So for the active, and remember, active means the subject commits the action. And that's why I say the subject singular verbs. The subject is verbing, the subject does verb, or if it's more than one, the subject's verb, the subjects are verbing, the subjects do verb. They actively do it. Compare that to passive expression, in which your endings would be aris, tor, mormini, and tor. The subject doesn't do the verbing, the subject is verbed upon. Or you could say the subject is being verbed. And in the plural, the subjects, they are verbed. They are being verbed. The imperfect, remember, you want to express the action as though it's happening in the past, but not completed. It's usually over an extended period of time. A continuous action of the past as you describe it. So you can say for when it's imperfect, the active, the subject verbed, or better yet, the subject was verbing. Now there are other expressions as well. You can say the subject began verbing, the subject used to verb, the subject kept verbing, but these are the two basic ones. And then, of course, the plural, the subject verbed, the subjects were verbing. Make that passive. It's just simply not that the subject verbed, but the subject was verbed. It's not that the subject was verbing passively with aristor, the subject was being verbed, and make that plural. The subjects were verbed. Had it happen to them, the subjects were being verbed. Lastly, for the future, the way that we express action 2 in the future, we just simply use will. The subject or subjects will verb, and if you make it passive, the subjects will not do it, but the subjects will have it happen to them, and thus the subjects will be verbed. And that is everything you need to know for the present, imperfect, and future. So it's at this time that I must now retrieve my brown marker. But there are 3 more tenses, and let's be clear about this. Latin only has 6. English has dozens. For example, that expression right there in English is known as the present simple. That expression right there is known as the present progressive. That is known as the present emphatic. This is called the past simple, the past progressive, and so forth and so on. People think in English that there are only 3 tenses: present, future, past. That is absolutely wrong. There are tons of tenses to express present action. I'm leaving out some. There's present iterative, there's present inceptive, all kinds of stuff. But in Latin, only 6. The other 3 tenses are right in brown. And they include the perfect tense, the pluperfect tense, and the future perfect tense. Now, why do I write them in brown? Because each of them have the word perfect in it. And the word perfectum means completed. And that's the kind of action they all express. Secondly, is that morphologically, in other words, according to their form, they also have something in common, and what they have in common is that they are going to use the perfect stem. Now remember, the present stem comes from the second principal part, is the infinitive. The infinitive gives the conjugation and the present stem. For the perfect, on the other hand, it is going to use the perfect stem, which you will find not in the second principal part, but in the third principal part. And the stem is everything except for that long I. Why is that long I not a part of the stem? Because that long I is actually an ending. The third principal part is the first person, singular, perfect, active, indicative. Active, subject, did the action. Indicative, its expression as a statement of fact. Now, lots of people, myself included, in many ways, like the perfect system better than the present system. And I'll show you why. In the present system, there's lots of things that can confuse you. Most particularly, those rascally vowels. That long E, or the vowels in front of a BA, and stuff like that. So there are a lot of moving parts. In the perfect system, there are only 2 parts. And those 2 parts are stem and ending. And that is it. So to make a perfect tense verb, take a perfect stem. To make a pluperfect tense verb, you take a perfect stem. To make a future perfect tense verb, you take the perfect stem. And all you do without any vowel is that you're going to add to it perfect endings, if it's perfect, pluperfect endings, if it's pluperfect, and future perfect endings, if it is future perfect. Now, a word about the perfect stem. Very often the perfect stem is recognized because you'll see the letters V sucks. Not always, but very often you'll see a V, or an S, or a U, or an X. And when you see those, then you know that you're dealing with the perfect stem. Now, hopefully I have it already there. Very good. So here you can see it in the perfect third principal part. See the S, see the X, see the V, see the X, see the U, see the V, see the U, see the U. However, sometimes the stem of the perfect is what we call lengthened. So take a look at video videre. Video videre, my present stem, is VID. Go to the third principal part, and it's still VID, but that I is now lengthened. And so the perfect stem can very often be lengthened. And that's why I would say it, video videre vidi visus. Really emphasizing in that third principal part. We can see another example of this up in the first group. Let's see if I can match it up. Oh man, coming close. Look at that. All right. Oh, almost. Nope, the wrong direction. There we go. So, same thing with venire, venire, ventus. The only difference between the present stem, second principal part, and the perfect stem, third principal part, is that it is lengthened. One other situation that you very often find with a perfect stem is it can be reduplicated. And we see this with the verb curro, currere, curry. And so, V-sucks, or lengthened stem, or reduplicated. Now, what you then have to do to be able to correctly understand the perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect is just simply know the different endings. Because these endings are all different from each other to indicate whether the action is perfect, pluperfect, or future perfect. And you can see them over here. Perfect endings, e isti it, imis istis erunt. Please note that erunt has an alternate ending, ere, but you will not confuse it, with an infinitive because it will be attached to a perfect stem. If it weren't attached to a perfect stem, it could be an infinitive at that point. But when it is attached to a perfect stem, it is actually just the alternate ending for erunt. Now the pluperfect endings are eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erant. Now that should be familiar to you. And the reason being is that for the verb sum esse fui futurus, its present is sum esse sunt, but the imperfect words, the imperfect forms are identical to those endings. But please note that whereas these are words not attached to a stem, the endings will be. And that's why you have dashes. It will be attached to a perfect stem. Likewise, your future perfect endings, ero, eris, erit, erimis, eritis, erint. Oh my Lord, this is incorrect. I'm going to have to fix this. Maybe it auto-corrected. Well, that actually should be an I. Erint. Now, I know in the past I've said the Romans don't make them say unt, or they don't make them say int, they make them say unt. Well, this instance, they do. So it wasn't really a lie, it's just all that you knew at that time. And so, these, you will note, are almost identical to the future ero, eris, erit, erimis, eritis, erunt, and that is correct. When it is the word, it is erunt. When it is an ending, it is erint. Word, erunt. Ending, erint. And again, you will not confuse them because these are words not attached to a stem, whereas, of course, those will be. Now, let's talk about the translation thereof. Perfect indicative means that the subject verbed in the past, did verb in the past, or has verbed, and if it's plural, the subjects have verb. That word have is truly in English indicating a completion. And so, that's when the action is happening, and it is done. Pluperfect is actually action not in the past, but the past. So in my timeline, if I have two activities that occurred in the past, and the example I often use is in the morning, I showered, and in the morning, I brushed my teeth. But when we have these two actions, the action of showering actually occurs before the action of brushing. And so if the action of brushing is already in the past, then that means the showering is in the past even before the past. And so, in many ways, the pluperfect is the past. Literally, plus means more. And so even more completed. And thus in the past. In English, we expressed action of the past with the helping verb had. So I can say, this morning, before I brushed my teeth, before I did brush my teeth, before I have brushed my teeth, I already had showered. And that's the expression for the pluperfect. Future perfect, on the other hand, needing its own timeline. And again, the vertical line indicates the present, everything to the left the past, everything to the right the future. The two words of future perfect indicate everything about it. Future, because that's when it happens. Perfect, indicating it's completed. So again, two actions of the future. First action, I will drive home. That's going to happen in the future. And hopefully it's going to happen rather soon, within the next 10, 15 minutes. And also, I will eat dinner, because I will be hungry. And so, if I wanted to express both of these, you must understand that one of them has to be expressed as a future perfect action, because future perfect means that it is completed before another action of the future. And so, I can say, today, before I will eat dinner in the future, I already will have driven home. And that is the way that you will express then future perfect with the helping verbs will have. Will lets you know that it's happening in the future, but have lets you know that it is a completed action. And that's a summation of the entirety of all the verbs and verb forms that we should have learned so far here at the outset of Latin 2. For the top three, we know both the active and the passive forms. For the bottom three, the perfect, the blue perfect, the future perfect, at this point we have only learned active. But that's all we need for now. And eventually we will come to learn the passive forms as well. If you have any questions, as always, let me know. Hopefully this video helped you. Bye.